So here we have an interesting stat. This is our GMC tweet of the night, and if you're listening on the radio at 93.7 The Fan, you can't really see it, but I'll read it to you. It's from Jason Mackey. Percentage of games won by Pittsburgh pro sports teams in seasons starting this year. The Pirates have the best winning percentage, which is unbelievable because they lost 100 games. They were 62 and 100, which is a, 6-10 season, even though they play 17 games in the NFL, but that's a 38% winning percentage right there. Penguins 36.4%, 4-5-2 after losing their last 6 games. They were off to a hot start there, winning 4 out of 5, and then now they've lost their last 6. All right, Steelers 25% at 2-6. So wonder what happens at the end of the year. I mean, even if the Steelers would have to go 7-10 to have a better winning percentage than the Pirates did this year. All right, let's go out to Perry in New Bedford. How you doing, Perry?
Hey, Rich, I'm doing great.
Thanks for calling.
I very rarely see anybody riding solo. I've been watching you for a few years. But I got 2 quick questions.
Go ahead.
Who's going to replace Chase Claypool that you think? And coming out of the bye, is the little 5'9" speedster going to be on the roster?
You mean Calvin Austin? He's done for the year. He had surgery. Is that who you're talking about? You're off. But Steven Sims, he's a guy that potentially might get some more playing time. But I think it's going to be Miles Boykin. He's pretty much a similar player to Chase Claypool. He can play inside. He does a lot of the sweeps that we've seen from Chase Claypool. Similar player to Chase Claypool, Miles Boykin. I think you're going to see, because of this, I think you're going to see a lot more Pat Freiermuth, maybe potentially Connor Hayward. And, speaking, this is a great subject that you brought up here tonight because this is one of the things I'm doing on the 11 o'clock news tonight, who you're going to see. And I had a chance to talk to Connor Hayward about it. But from what I gather in the locker room and talking to guys and watching practice, I think it's going to be a combination of a couple guys, Miles Boykin and Pat Freiermuth, Connor Hayward, Steven Sims, and whoever emerges as the best inside slot guy, that's who they're going to be throwing the ball to. But they got to throw the ball in the middle. And they got to use Pat Freiermuth more. They got to get him the ball no matter who replaces Chase Claypool out there. And you got to get the ball to George Pickens. I mean, George Pickens looks like an absolute star. You got to find a way to get him the ball, right? Not 3 targets. You got to target that guy maybe 10, 11, 12 times during a game like you did with other big-time receivers like Antonio Brown and like other teams do with DeAndre Hopkins, guys like this. This guy's a star. You got to be running your offense through George Pickens right now because nothing else seems to work. As good as Deontay Johnson is at getting open, he drops too many balls. Najee Harris, you can't run the offense through him because he can't hit holes. He dances around too much. He's not decisive. I would play Jaylen Warren as much as Najee Harris right now and see if you can get a run game going. Or potentially go out there and maybe you should have traded for a running back. Maybe bring in a guy like Cam Akers and see if you could have helped, resurrect this run game. It's not the entire offensive line's fault. You got to blame Najee Harris a little bit too. Here, let's go out to Josiah from San Antonio. Josiah, haven't heard from you in a long time. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Rich, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Just 2 things. One, Tomlin needs to quit being so cheap. He hires these guys that seems like they're just no good. All of his hires pretty much are pretty cheap. He doesn't really hit on any of these coaches. Look outside of the organization to get another coach. And then secondly, with Pickett and our draft picks, listen, they don't need to be rushing Pickett. It's going to take probably 3 or 4 years before he and Harris get good. And even if the Steelers get a top 5 pick, I'm not wasting it on Bryce Young or another quarterback. Steeler Nation, relax. It's going to be a process. Let's not just dump Pickett after the 2nd year.
Look, I agree with you on not dumping Pickett, but there are some problems, potential problems. I don't think he has as much. I mean, if you're looking at guys like Josh Allen, we've seen, and even Jalen Hurts, he doesn't have as much zip on the ball as those guys have. A lot of the receivers have to come back to the ball. So I don't know if you can fix that. I think he can get better when the game slows down and he's not so anxious to run. He's a good athlete. He's a good football player. You got to give it time, just like you said. I wouldn't rush at a quarterback. I thought they should have went with Trubisky this entire year when they signed him in the offseason and not even drafted Pickett, but they were enamored with Pickett. They liked him, and that's why they drafted him. But, I thought this was a year you could find out what Trubisky or Rudolph can do. And we're also a year behind. Look, I know Ben wanted a swan song, and you want to bring him back for one more year, but it kind of delayed this whole process by 1 year, even though Ben was probably the best option. But you could have seen if you had a Mason Rudolph, if he could have been a quarterback, or Trubisky this year. You could have had a battle between those two guys. And if you're bad, then you get a top pick and you get one of the quarterbacks this year. You could also find out a little bit about Matt Canada. That's why I kind of questioned what they did. But they went, you can't change it now. They went and got Kenny Pickett. I have no problem with them playing him now. You got to keep playing him. Even though I thought there was a potential that they would go back to Trubisky when Pickett got that concussion. It was an opportunity to go back to see what he could do. But you got to stick with Pickett. He's your guy, and you're going to build this team around him and see what you have. Let's go out to Steven in New York. How you doing, Steven?
Good evening. Listen, the problem is this here, too, as well. The defensive backs, man, they're terrible.
I don't disagree with you, Steven.
How's that?
Yeah, I look, I don't disagree with you with that question, and that's why I think if they do get a top 5 pick, I haven't really studied who the top defensive backs are out there right now, but, I mean, you're always going to get a good one in the top 10. You might get the best one in the top 10. So I think that's an area that they have to address somehow. William Jackson is not the answer, but they did at least bring in a veteran guy, and they'll have to decide whether they're going to keep him for $12 million next year. But cornerback is definitely a position of need for this team. Akella Witherspoon, and, I mean, I like Cam Sutton, but Cam Sutton is a compliment to someone. So I don't think the two guys that they have, Levi Walsh and Akella Witherspoon, are guys that are going to be shut down man-to-man type cornerbacks. I mean, you have Minkah Fitzpatrick back there, and I don't know what they're going to do about Edmonds. You could probably get him at a cheaper deal if he wants to stick around. But you need to do something to make this defense better. And it starts up front. They're getting older. Cam Hayward's still one of the best, but you need to get guys around him. I liked DeMarvin Leal, and then he got hurt. T.J. Watt has to stay healthy. And, Alex Highsmith can't do anything without T.J. Watt opposite him. They need some depth right there. They need a guy on the inside. Even though Devin Bush has played better, that's a position that they're going to have to target too, because he's going to be gone next year. And you have Miles Jack. So I think potentially the lines and secondary cornerback are the positions that I think that they're going to target high in next year's draft. Let's go out to Guy in Ligonier. How you doing, Guy?
Hey, love the show. I think George Pickens reminds me of a young John Stallworth. I think he's a real deal.
I think he's the real deal, too. I had a chance to talk to him. I mean, I talk to him every week, but I had a chance to really get to know him a few weeks ago. And I like this kid. I mean, he's out there catching balls, and he's always practiced catching one-handed. He's been doing it since high school. That's his thing. He gets open, and even if he doesn't get open, he's so tall, and his arm his arm span is just so much longer than other guys that he can just go out there and catch the ball one-handed. It's like nothing to him. So he's proven that he can do it. He makes a spectacular catch just about every game. I just think they need to get him the ball more. I think that's the big thing with him. Get him the ball more. And then if they're going to have to double him or move a safety over to him, then you potentially have Deontay Johnson open. And that guy can make plays too. And then what about in the middle? I mean, Pat Freiermuth should be a mismatch problem. Should be a matchup problem. There's no question about that. He's bigger than corners. I don't think safeties can cover him. Linebackers can't cover him. We saw that he pretty much catches everything. I don't understand why they're not using him more. I mean, I see the frustration on when I go over and talk to him after games, and no one seems to they can't answer the question, what's wrong? And everyone says to me, when I ask the question, they all say, I'm just doing what the coaches call. I'm just playing what the coaches call. So everyone's pointing fingers right now, and that's not a good situation to be in a locker room. I've been around that before. And that's part of the reason, if they don't come together, and maybe this bye week they will come together, that's part of the reason why I think that it's going to be a losing second half of the season. I just don't see them going 5-4 with this team in the second half. I mean, maybe they win a little bit more games than I think they would. I think they should win, I think, 4 games. I think I saw some projection out there that has them winning only 2 games or something like that, or there was one out there that had them not winning anyone. A lot of people think they're the worst team in the NFL, and I don't know if I disagree with that. They have talent. Their defense is really good, or should be really good. They have really good players. They're just not playing together right now, and losing some battles, and then things just kind of unravel from there, and they fall apart. And I think that's the situation they're in right now. I mean, Mink is one of the best safeties in the league. T.J. Watt, when he's healthy and out there, he's the best linebacker in the NFL. Cam Hayward's one of the best up front. They have a lot of money in these guys, invested in these guys. So I think the defense will be pretty good with T.J. Watt coming back. It's just the offense got to score more than 15 points a game. We got to take a break. Back with more of your phone calls, some of your tweets. Coming up next. Stay right there.